Welcome back, everybody, to your regular Malazan Book of the Fallen knitting class and your daily update on the state of the Malazan Empire. Spoiler, it's falling, but slowly. But first, let's get into the usual knitting update. Yeah, this thing just keeps getting longer and longer, so we'll see. I feel like I'm running out of wool, but I need to at least add another, I don't know, probably like this long again because it now goes around my neck once properly, but I feel it should be longer, is what I'm trying to say. I don't want to continue this until the end of the entire series because then I could probably turn a mummy out of myself at that point, but we'll see. Um, might be worth something. Anyway, so that being put out of the way, we're still with this beer, but I can tell you, I only have two of those left in the fridge, so there's going to be excitement in this department very soon. So yeah, let's do something. We're still talking about book one because, as you well know, I'm a fool and I forget stuff because I suck at making notes. I also suck at reading notes, but even if I could, I probably wouldn't. So I kind of forgot stuff, and I figured let's do a second video on that before I go into book two, because also those books are longer. All right, so without further ado, cheers. All right. So, what did I forget? There's a bunch of things I wanted to talk about and I kind of forgot. I guess people who have already read book one of Deadhouse Gates are already saying, yeah, what about Icarium and Mappo? And you're right, I forgot those two. Clean forgot, and I want to talk about them definitely a bit more. They're going to be even more important in the next books and so forth. I'll have more to say on especially Mappo, who's one of my favorite characters of the entire series, I feel. But first of all, at this point I wanted to look at how Erickson introduces the two in a way. Like, we've heard of Icarium at least, yeah, and Mappo is at least mentioned by name in Gardens of the Moon, when we hear that Icarium is the person who invented the or created the mechanism that runs in Council Hall in Darujistan and gives out the names for the upcoming year. And we hear that he visited Darujistan together with Mappo a couple of 100 years ago. I feel there might be some inconsistency here that I don't even want to think about because I'm not good with timelines. There's lore people out there, but in my memory, which is obviously not a very good memory, it's said that Icarium and Mappo visit Darujistan together 500 years ago or something. And at some point here in Deadhouse Gates, it's said that Mappo and Icarium have been together for 200 years, which, yeah, I don't know. People with more knowledge should actually figure this out, not me. So I don't know. If you want to do year counting down there and be like proper historians of the 19th century or whatever, write it down there. Otherwise, yeah, whatever. Now, what I wanted to look at is how, because there has been criticism by people who we are not going to name or whatever, that Stephen Erickson's character work is not the best, to put it mildly. Also, Stephen Erickson has replied with a largish essay in social media that got him some criticism because some people were like, oh, this comes across super arrogant. How dare you to actually tell us what you're doing? That kind of thing. I'm also not going to go into that. I think I get where he's coming from. I totally support all of that, and I understand what he's doing, including the, let's say, irritation with some people's opinions. And I think he's said more than enough on the topic. What I wanted to look at is the introduction and establishment of Mappo and Icarium as characters within the beginning of Deadhouse Gates. This is like an ongoing thing, obviously, but it's, I think, a very very good example of the whole like show don't tell, character building that Erickson then in his essay tried to explain with like an example. And like we hear of them first in Gardens of the Moon in like a rather short, like we know they're old, they're obviously very powerful, at least Icarium is this kind of mysterious figure and so forth. But it's like two short notices. Like one of them is that he clashed with Anomandarake and Osirk, and like everyone was arguing or whatever, and that like makes clear from like the first mention onward that he's apparently one of the big, like at least old, important beings within the Malazan world. If he can like actually, interact with Anomandarake on a level like every few centuries or whatever. That tells us something already. And then we go on into Deadhouse Gates, where he is actually shown in like one of the very early scenes of the book. And we see him through the eyes of Mappo, who is also like mentioned as his companion in the Gardens of the Moon, but just like as his companion. So we first see Mappo, and we see what Mappo is doing, which is like drinking cactus juice, either for medicinal reasons or to prove Niflrock wrong when it comes to his criticism of Stephen Erickson's description of food, because it's neither a cheese nor a bread nor an ale cactus, so I figure either it's medicine or it's actually variation in food. Quick aside, we also see Fiddler eating both cold and spiced meat and cold fruit when he visits the Spirit Walker. Yeah, just saying. Anyway, what I'm saying is we see that Mappo, and we get some of Mappo's like inner monologue on the side. And that's how we see Icarium. There's no like inner monologue or anything. Like we don't get Icarium's worldview. We don't get that at here. But we see Icarium. We see a lot through how Mappo thinks about Icarium, how he talks about Icarium. We get a pretty interesting and slowly developing picture of who or what Icarium is, how he looks, how he acts. Those things when he's like, yeah, he's dressed like a Tano Spirit Walker, but it's basically, apparently Icarium feels that it might be a working disguise, and actually disguise that works. And we also see that not only does it not work at this point when like the dye is growing out and washing away and everything, but it never really worked. But Mappo is like maybe humoring Icarium there or not, and we see that. That shows us something about Icarium. He obviously has issues with his perception of himself and the world in a way. He comes across as like from those first interactions, he comes across as powerful, but also like very naive in a way, very power like also like very positive. He seems like a nice dude for the last like first couple of minutes until we hear like some of Mappo's thoughts and realize there's more to the character. But it takes a long time to see those things. We see that we have the first interaction with one of the divers, and yeah, so the divers. I think the first one's the divers. Anyway, we have those first interactions. We yeah, right. It's divers. It's random divers. Anyway, we see that he is powerful. That he's obviously kind of warlike, but he doesn't want to. He seems to be a more pacifist, like almost a pacifist when it comes to actual violence. He doesn't want to do violence. Mappo doesn't want him to do violence. And there's like this dark thing between them. And the way that from then on, like how we see the character of Icarium through Mappo, how the way that Stephen Erickson established both characters and their relationship through those scenes is done like for me very deftly done. It's something that you can like very easily overlook the first time round, or like even the second time round. If you don't pay too much attention, you miss a lot of those nuances and details, and I totally get that. I guess it can feel like, if you're not used to that kind of character building, I guess it can feel like flat in a way. But when you actually pay attention, and I kind of try to pay more attention to it this time around, yeah, it is just done like very, very well. And I figured I'll just pull this out there. I really want to talk more about Mappo later on, and his like whole personality, character, and once again in that whole discussion on how like the individual deals with outside forces and stuff like that, with obligations, with loyalty. That's something that we find a lot of that is very important here, is loyalty. We'll see more of that also when we talk about Kalam and his loyalties, and I guess it's going to be like a topic for another video when we have more like actual meat from Deadhouse Gates to talk a bit more about loyalty and what it does to people. Yeah, I just wanted to put this out there. Then there's like a few other like odds and ends that I feel are important to look at. One of them is a really super small detail, and I hope I'm not going to spoil anything, but when you remember, like when you read the scene with Fiddler visiting the Tano spirit walker, Kimlock, and Kimlock tells Fiddler that he would like to craft a song about the bridge burners and all of that stuff, and then says that he would need to touch Fiddler to get all of that. And Fiddler says no. Read that scene to the end, and maybe you'll notice something is what I'm saying here. And just keep that in mind for like how many on like how much of the stuff that happens in this series is like prepared in the smallest of details. Anyway, that's just like one thing that I felt like might be interesting. Another thing I really wanted to talk about and forgot to talk about is the scene where Dykar, the imperial historian, he's also one of the most interesting and most important characters in this part of the Malazan Book of the Fallen in general. Dykar's important. Let's just say that for a lot of reasons, and I feel like I need to talk more about Dykar in later installments of the Deadhouse Gates video series. I'll just say that now. But remember when Dykar visits the trader camp and watches the divination? Like, look closely, read closely the actual words of that prophecy, and then see what has already been established within just within the first book of Deadhouse Gates and the prologue. Look at that and just get, how well it's done is just what I'm trying to say, because I kind of completely overlooked it. Oh, it's just another general like end of the world kind of prophecy, and then I realized, well, maybe not. Maybe there's more to it. And yeah, that's just something I felt I should have mentioned, and I kind of forgot to do. So yeah, there's that. And that's some of the things I kind of forgot to talk about in the first part of this book. In the first part of the book one videos, when I thought I'll just make one, and then I just basically stopped the recording and all this stuff popped up back into my mind. And yeah. Anyway, so those are some, just like some odds and ends there that I feel are important to look at when you look at Deadhouse Gates, among other things. And just saying once again, Dykar is a character like a lot of people who read Deadhouse Gates are impressed by Coltane. For all kinds of reasons, and I'm not saying that because he might be the kind of character that people with like more gothic inclinations lean to admiring. Nope. Yeah, he's just like he stands out, but it's other characters that I feel are more interesting and more important within Deadhouse Gates, and Daika is one of them. And I'll just like explain later on why I feel Daika is the one who's really, really important in this book. What else was there? What I felt might be interesting? Yes, the divers and soul taken. I just call them soul taken at this point because I feel it's better, but probably the pronunciation is wrong. Anyway, the idea of them having a this path of hands, this way to ascendancy and power. I just generally love the idea of how shapeshifting works within the Malazan Book of the Fallen with those two versions of how it works. Um, that's just like, yeah, I just think it's really cool to have this idea of like turning into several creatures or into like one super large creature. Kind of makes you feel like this whole like Dracula turning into a whole ton of bats and stuff like that. Um, yeah, just from like a world building like view, that's just like done very cool. Also, when you have the idea of the bite of a diverse or soul taken being very dangerous and leading potentially to madness. Did you like catch on that what Mappo describes there when he's bitten by that? Don't even see when he's bitten. We just see when he's wounded, and he talks about this, like thinks about this whole madness that comes once per month and leads to murder, like murderous rage and madness for a couple of days, and then lead goes off again. Yeah, right. The werewolf thing. I'm just saying. it. That's the kind of thing I like in there. Those small details, those interesting small details. Another thing that we see already in book one, we'll see more of it in book two when I do the book two video, which will be tomorrow, is the whole power structure hierarchy thing. We see a lot of that going on within Skull Cup and the Ototaro mines, and how the whole slaves versus Malazan guards versus the Seven Cities guards. The hierarchy thing is once again something that we need to look at later on, I feel. So once again, this is like an opening book one of Deadhouse Gates. There's a lot of stuff being introduced, a lot of stuff where you should put like a pin in to revisit later on when you realize what is built from it. And I feel I'll just leave it at that today. I got a lot of other stuff to do today, and I'll be back tomorrow with the first part of the book 2 video for Deadhouse Gates, unless I go full Robert E. Howard or Fritz Leiber on you. We'll see. Until then, cheers.